As the number of Netflix subscribers has really exploded to over 139 million, their view on the competition is apparently changing. In a quarterly letter to investors, executives said in part, quote, "We compete with and lose to Fortnite, that's a game, more than HBO. Our focus is not on Disney Plus, Amazon, or others, but on how we can improve our experience for our members." So do we think this is genuine, or is Netflix just throwing a little shade at HBO and those other companies? Let's ask Dave Maney, Digital founder and CEO. So what's going on here with that reference to Fortnite and HBO?
Well, look, I mean, the Fortnite phenomenon is real, but if I were an investor in Netflix, my concern would not be Fortnite. My concern would be that my company that I had invested in is fundamentally in a lowered barrier to entry business, and that people who are really well positioned to compete with me and compete rather savagely with me are now coming into the business. I think the shoe that dropped last week was the announcement that NBC Universal, i.e. Comcast, is coming into the streaming business. And they certainly have an arsenal of weapons that make them a lot scarier than anyone playing Fortnite as far as Netflix shareholders go.
Do you think, Dave, that that Netflix has the Apple iPhone problem, that at least here in the U.S. everybody has an account? So my question is, do they go after those plan sharers, that they're going to make each person have their own plan, the password cheaters out there? Do you think they go after them to get more growth in the US?
I can imagine. I mean, certainly that kind of sealing up the leaks in the boat makes all kinds of sense if you can figure it out. But the issue is that when you move into a creative business where there's not direct barriers to entry, like back in the cable era, to get that programming, you had to subscribe to the cable system. Now that we're in a broadband universe, lots of programmers can weigh in and build streaming packages. And so when you look at these guys coming in with these 13 to 18% price increases, like they're an old style cable company, they just don't have that pricing power. And so, yeah, you can seal up the password sharing, but you can't seal up the competitive entry. And that's the big problem here.
Yeah, I got to say, Dave, I wonder if you agree. I think people are overstating the importance of that comment. It's nothing new that passive entertainment competes with interactive entertainment, whether it's by way of doing it online like Fortnite or you're just playing a game at home. That's old news. What's fascinating and why I remain incredibly bullish on a company like Netflix, yes, no bars to entry, because with television, it was a distribution game. If you either had to get enough terrestrial stations to carry your program to sell advertisers, or if you were a cable operator, an MSO, you had to get on the services. Now it's streaming. It's a wide open land. What does that mean? It all comes down to programming. Right now, Netflix has shown themselves to be extremely adept at programming. There will be others who can do it too.
I disagree with you, Rick. I think that a lot of and I'll ask Dave to comment on this because I think that's the point he was on. For many years, the competitive advantage of Netflix was they were the only ones you could get first DVDs from and then streaming.
That's not
now
their business
everyone's
anymore.
in the streaming game,
Yeah.
from Comcast shortly to Hulu to Amazon Prime. So now they're in a content game. Content is like retail. You're hot one day, you're cold the next.
That's
Dave,
right.
your thoughts on that?
So that's the interesting thing here. They are now in a content arms race with a potentially unlimited number of competitors. I have a very good friend whose name is Jonathan Nee, who's one of the premier media investment bankers there is over at Evercore. And Jonathan makes the point that he asked me one time, he said, why do you think Netflix is spending so much money on programming? And his answer was, because they have to.
Right.
And his observation, which I think is very, very interesting, is that in a wide open, creatively fueled business like that, ultimately, if you don't control the distribution, all returns accrue to the creative talent. That is, that a bidding war, an arms race erupts for the programming.
That's not entirely true. I wish it were true, but it's not entirely true. Look, it is content. And you know what? I won't go into a whole speech about the economics of content. Suffice it to say that anybody who's a player in the game, all they need is that one hit. And they can coast on those profits for 20 years. years. Just ask Castle Rock on
That
Seinfeld.
assumes you're referring, I have to say, in my opinion, you are referring to a world that used to exist.
Why
where
is
there
it
was
different?
only a limited number of players who could line up to buy that content. When you look at the
Exactly.
amount now that's being spent, it is no longer superpowers.
Dave.
It is now the great, big, and growing nuclear club of
Would
entertainment.
you agree
Are
that
we,
it'll
uh,
weed
Hold on,
itself
hold on. Very
out?
quickly, Jonas.
Dave,
go
are
ahead.
we being guilty of all being a little too old here? I mean, I understand why this company wouldn't want to be valued like HBO, which is part of AT&T, which is a huge company, and Netflix is already worth more than half of AT&T. They don't want to be valued like that. But I mean, this whole thing where they're trying to plug us in for 24 hours of entertainment, they must really be worried that someone's like Google or someone's going to come out with a virtual reality entertainment system that's going to make watching anything on a screen seem like a record business you're investing in. It's going to be it's going to wipe it out in a year. Is that something that he really is worried about? He can handle the HBOs of the world. He can't handle
Quick
the
last comment, Dave.
Yes, competition now can come from any direction.
Okay.
It's no longer, hey, who's going to do the same thing as me? It could be Fortnite, and it could be something completely different.
Gotcha.
But you're right; they cannot expect that they're going to play at the line of scrimmage opposite somebody who's just going to bang
It's
heads.
a
Hey, Dave,
wonderful
thank
thing.
you very much for coming in. Have a great weekend. We appreciate it. Dave Maney,
You
everybody.
too.